What's happening, everybody? Give everyone a little bit of time to get in here. Throw on this little quick 30-second countdown clip here. So share the stream if you would, please, and strap in for a tell-all from Lindsey Edwards, a former sex worker turned sex slave, and her experience with Alex Murdaugh. Crazy stuff. What is happening, everybody that's tuning in with me right now? I know we're doing a little bit of a later show than normal, but well, we have, been with this for quite a while, handful of weeks now, and I came across this video today, which I haven't seen before, and it's if it doesn't fit, then you haven't been paying attention, because everything about the gritty world that could possibly exist around a human being seems to line up perfectly with the way that the Murdaughs have been living their lives. Alex Murdaugh here in a tell-all from a woman by the name of Lindsey Edwards, was involved in a sexual relationship of some type, and she was working as a sex worker, stripper, and then went into the sex trade, and then ended up being more of a gunpoint situation where her sex work turned into sex slavery. So, and that's where the real turning point really happens. And we talk about sex trafficking and things of that nature. And this kind of is an overlapping tale of how that can happen. And the story of a woman who, she's made her way away from that industry and was able to get out. But in her time involved therein, she crossed paths with Alex Murdaugh. And we've got this interview here, which is going to take us a little bit of time to watch, but I'm gonna put it on play and just let it roll through, and we're gonna take a listen to what life was like. Now, just keep in mind that this interview starts off a bit. It's going to be triggering, I'm sure, for many people. Also, she jumps into right off the bat talk about there's like the pro-life, pro-choice issue comes up for a few minutes. It's not the long stay of the video, but it does come up. Don't get hung up on it too much, guys. Again, that's not why we're doing this. It's not this isn't a video that's going to be geared towards striking up an argument about left, right, up, down, pro this, anti that, whatever it might be. So while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and allow this to play through. Compliments go out to FITSNEWS of South Carolina. Did a phenomenal job of coverage and continue to do incredible work in South Carolina with the ongoing news there and catching breaking stories as they happen. So, and in the description, you can find links to all of FITSNEWS outlets, if you will. So, without any further ado, please share the stream and enjoy this show here. I say that as I wait, but here we go.
Story. How do we connect?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess you can say I posted videos referring to Alex Murdaugh being one of my clients from when I was sex trafficked for about 2.5 years. And with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, it made me want to come out and talk more about my situation and what I went through and how Roe versus Wade really helped me and protected me when I was in that sort of imprisonment. And now that South Carolina is going to be one of the next states that puts an abortion ban up and starts removing health clinics and easy access to Plan B and birth control and stuff, it's not something I want to see for the state that I love. I lived here for 9 years, and it's definitely my place that I call home. And to have that taken away from all the women in this state absolutely kills me.
Tell us a little bit about that too, because so many people hear, Planned Parenthood and they think, well, it's just abortion, but actually some of the things you're talking about would have prevented the necessity of abortions, correct?
Yeah. I mean, when you get rid of the abortion clinics, you're also getting rid of more easy access to Plan B, birth control, regular free checkups for women, and the ability to be able to just walk into a clinic and get a bag of condoms
Mhm.
for people who can't really afford it or can't get them normally or even scared to even ask their parents.
Mhm.
And it like all in all, like it'll prevent more abortions from happening and people from having to travel outside of states and spend money they don't have or even having to find time to escape their jobs or abusive spouses or whatever it may be.
So the irony here is that there's a lot of people who may be pro-life, but the fact that they're depriving people access to some of those services is putting more people in the position where they would get pregnant to potentially have to have abortions.
Yeah. And then you're opening up the possibility of a lot of back alley abortions that can further harm, possibly even kill women. And then even if they don't put an exception to medical emergencies, having incomplete miscarriages can kill women. Having ectopic pregnancies can kill women. And then it's like, well, if you want all these babies to be born, then you need to make sure that the mothers are alive to be able to even make more children in the future if they want to.
So this ruling pissed you off.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And you took to your TikTok account.
Yeah.
Tell us, and again, we're going to get into all the details on Alec Murdaugh here in a minute, but tell us about the response when you posted this video. What happened after you dropped that name on social media?
Um, I got a lot of people that believed it, that could see him doing this sort of type of, I guess you can say, arrangement, things that were going on. And then there was a lot of people that were like, oh, you're just trying to jump on a bandwagon and use his name and join in on this stuff. And it's the amount of trauma that I went through. I wouldn't want to, I guess you can say, share it or talk about it for any other way, just because I mean, it's obviously going to tarnish his reputation along with my own. And it's something that I've stayed quiet about for upwards of, I think, like 6 years now.
Mhm.
And I thought that I would just end up taking that situation with me to the grave.
Right. Because that's sort of the code, I guess, of
Yeah. And it's not really something that I wanted my family, my friends, my community to, I guess, portray me as or see me as like, oh, she's just another prostitute or she was just fucking for money and stuff like that. And it's a lot more deeper than that. I mean,
Mhm.
I was a dancer and then I got put into a position that I was basically lied to and ended up like getting trapped into something that I had no clue about until it was too late.
Mhm. And let's distinguish because you and I we had a wonderful chat yesterday. We were talking about a lot of things getting ready for this interview, but we were breaking down the difference of, there's dancing, there's sex work, but then there's people who are legitimately forced into, I mean, it's rape in some of these cases, right?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like dancers, prostituting, and human trafficking all kind of fall under the lines of sex workers. I mean, dancing is definitely like it's a sex work in a way, but it's in a different fashion, a lot more innocent and legal fashion, per se. They all fall under like the sex workers category. Um, with the human trafficking, sorry,
So,
the human trafficking, I mean, your body, your choice. I mean, if you wanna go out and sell yourself for money, go ahead, but it's like when it comes to the fact of somebody else doing it for you and controlling you and telling you who you're going to service, how you're going to service them, and everything like that, even if you don't want to, because that person is abusive or has harmed you in the past, harmed others in the past, then it does become rape at that point.
and we're going to get into just how abusive Alec Murdaugh was in a little bit. But before we get to that, I wanted to just bring people into progression that you went through. You started as a dancer, is that right?
Yeah. I was going through my divorce with my first husband, and I had a 5-month-old daughter, and there was no way I've been able to support a household, my child, and myself 500 miles away from where I grew up and where all my family was. So I took to dancing and made decent money. I wouldn't say it was horrible. I mean, I was able to get bills paid and not have to worry too much about having certain things shut off, unless the fact that I would oversleep the next day and just forget to go to the companies and pay them because alls I would have is cash. I never really put it into bank cards or debit cards or anything like that. But when I guess you can say, like, clientele would die down during holidays and stuff like that, that would come into the clubs, the fees to even work in a strip club were still extremely high because you would have house fees, you would have DJ tip outs, bouncer tip outs, manager tip outs, everything like that. So you could make like $1,200, $1,500 a night, but you're still gonna be walking away with probably about $600
Mm.
just from all the fees that come along with everything with working in a club. And when I guess you can say I started traveling out and going to other clubs outside of Hilton Head, I went up to Charleston. I worked at Stilettos. I worked at the Southern Belle, which is now Goodfellas Cabaret. And even more so there, I mean, like even if you go full nude, like the money still was not as good. And I kind of stuck with staying at Stilettos a lot and realizing that they had a very large clientele coming in, a lot of people, a lot of sales. It was a lot more suitable to be a dancer there because you would actually make money and not have to pay so much to leave the club every night. But the amount that I was traveling from Beaufort all the way to Charleston, 6 nights a week on top of $300 a week in childcare, it was still, like, just barely making it.
At this point, you're just dancing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I never wanted to be the type of person that even worked in the clubs that would suck dick for money, fuck in the back rooms, or anything like that. That was never my forte whatsoever. I always was very strict and in my lane with that because I've seen other girls do it and I see how it makes every other girl in the club upset and mad because in a way it's like that gives men in the clubs like a leeway of like, "Oh, well, we can do this dance, but this girl did this for me, so will you do this for me?" And it's like, if you say no, then it's like, "Oh, then I don't wanna deal with you."
Changes expectations. So
Yes, it completely gives them the wrong expectation of what a strip club really is.
it forces you to either do it or lose out on money.
Yeah, and I still stuck to my guns, it was not something I wanted to do. And I got word, from, I guess you can say, all the girls in the club about this one lady who ran girls for private parties.
Mhm.
And me being young and naive, I didn't know really what private parties
Now,
was.
how old are you at this time?
I'm
Was
28,
okay.
and back then I was 20 years old.
Okay.
So, um, they wanted to, they were informing me about how this lady would run girls for private parties. We'd basically be doing what we were doing in the club, but in private houses and rental houses, beach houses, wherever it may be, where guys are having like bachelor parties and stuff, or like a guys' weekend and everything. And they were very high up men, I guess you can say,
Mhm.
and would pay a lot of money for it. And we would make a lot more going with her and doing it privately versus being in the club and having to pay all these fees and tip outs and basically fight for money at that point.
At this point, the private parties, your presumption is I'm just going to dance.
Yeah.
It's same thing, just different location, just
Yeah.
out of the club.
Yeah, and I was like, "Well, that's even better because then it's like I can make my own schedule a lot more easier than if I was in the club. I can it would be a lot more, I guess you can say, flexible in a way, and I could have more time off to be able to spend time with my daughter while still making just as much, if not more." And I was all for it. And I had one of the girls that was very close with her because her older sister also worked for this lady in the past get me in. And that's kind of, I guess you can say, how I got in because there was a bunch of other girls that were begging to, but she wouldn't take them. It was only if, like, you had somebody on the inside that you were able to get in.
So you get in with this madam,
Mhm.
we'll call her, and what happens then?
Um, by the time I got into the car for that night and we start driving around, that's when she kind of fills me in on what we're going to be actually doing. And that includes servicing men.
It's servicing.
Sex, blowjobs, everything like that. And she was passing around condoms and everything like that, trying to break down, like, how to ask for money. Like, you ask for donations, you don't ask for a set price. They already know the set price. You go in there, you ask for donations, you don't take off a drop of your clothing until the man has fully exposed himself. When he has fully exposed himself, that's when you collect the donations, and then that's when you take off your clothes.
And what's the logic there?
It was more so to see if they were police officers or not, because a police officer cannot fully expose themselves
Oh,
to you, and when you're asking for donations rather than just for money in general, then that eliminates, I guess you can say, the ability to prosecute for solicitation.
okay. It's because it's not a payment; it's a gift.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. So this is 2014.
Late 2014, yeah.
Like
I wanna say
2014.
about December-ish.
And so you're in the car, you're on to the first
Appointment.
party, and you had no idea until then exactly what
Yeah.
would transpire.
I had no idea, and then once I kinda figured out what was going to be happening, I was like, "Can we just go back to my car? I really don't wanna do this or anything like that. I'd rather go home. I'd rather just go work back at the club," and that upset this lady a lot,
Hmm.
and she started driving around in random circles around town, speeding, slamming on brakes, going around circles, and the bodyguard that was in the front seat was loading up a gun ready to put it to my head in a way to almost, like, influence me and threaten me. And I was freaking out and scared at that time. I was like, "I really just don't wanna do this. I don't wanna do this," and then they started threatening about, killing me, finding my daughter, killing my daughter, going after my family if I did not do this, or if I chose to do this and then go home and report it to police.
So at this point, you're not a sex worker, you're a sex slave.
Yeah.
Wow.
It went from, like, 0 to 100 in the matter of, like, 20 minutes. And I can say, my first appointment, I guess you can say I went to, I tried to get off with just dancing, I guess you can say, away, and lap dances and stuff, even though I did it fully naked and everything, but they kept requesting stuff, and then that's when I can say, my madam got out of the car and then just came in the house that we were at and basically bitched me out for a good, like, 30, 40 minutes, and then stood outside the door to make sure that I actually did service them.
Unbelievable. You said something yesterday when we were talking, and it was sort of like the point where you went from, okay, this is a way I can make money where I'm providing for my family, and that it was something like dancing you actually like to do.
Yeah, I enjoy dancing. I mean, that was I still have a pole at my house and everything. It's, like, almost like a workout for me. It's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. I mean, even if I'm half naked or not, it's just I've enjoyed the art of pole work, I guess you can say.
Yeah. But this was the first time I remember that you said yesterday, I did not have a choice.
Yeah. There there was no choice. There was no sort of, "Okay, well, now that I know what this is like, it's fine. I'll keep it all secret and everything, but this just isn't the life for me. This isn't what I wanted to do at any point in time, even during my time as a dancer, that I ever wanted to do those things for money. I didn't want to degrade myself in that sense whatsoever.
Mhm.
But I lost that choice. There was no way out at that point.
Mhm.
No way that I felt safe. And even during the first appointment, she took my cell phone and was able to, like, somehow share locations of where my phone was with her that I had no idea that she did until later on. And that's when I knew, it's like, well, then that's how she found out where I lived, where I was going, where I was at all points in times, even if I wasn't at her house getting ready to go out for appointments that night.
And tell us a little bit some of these rules with the phones. You were telling me yesterday that when you're on your way to an appointment, tell us
Yeah.
about the phone drill.
Yeah. Um, we couldn't have any sort of cameras out unless we were just like taking selfies of like us as like a group or whatever or anything like that. We could never have our phones like sitting up in the back texting. We always had to have them laying flat so then she could see in the rear view mirror what we were actually doing on our phones. Because if she even thought for a second that we were pulling up like Google Maps or Apple Maps to be able to drop pins on locations of where we were at, she would absolutely lose her mind. It was not allowed whatsoever because she didn't want us to know where we were, who we were servicing, or what we were like, where we were in general in the city.
Mhm.
And we would travel everywhere from like Mount Pleasant, Johns Island, Isle Palms, West Ashley, downtown Charleston, North Charleston, Somerville, Goose Creek, just basically anywhere.
It's some pretty famous people on that list. We won't name names here today, but some people you recognize on television and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes it hard though. I even watch the PGA Masters tour anymore.
let's fast forward to late 2014, early 2015. I know you don't have the precise date,
Mhm.
but you were dispatched with how many other girls was it?
It was usually 2 to 3 other girls in the car.
You were sent to a beach house on the Isle of Palms. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Tell us about that particular trip.
Um, well, that was probably, like, I guess you can say, like, one of the first times that it had sort of like a private party sense to it of, like, I guess what was portrayed to me. We all went into the house, even my madam. And it was a group of us. We were going in there. It was apparently like a guys' weekend or something like that. And there was like a bunch of guys there drinking, doing drugs, had a fire going on the deck and eating food, just hanging out and stuff like that, which literally for I think it was a good like the first hour, hour and a half that we were there. That's literally what we did with them. We were taking shots, doing cocaine, smoking weed, hanging out by the fire, and just talking and, like, almost, like, getting to know them in a way,
Mhm.
and that's where I met Alex Murdaugh, and I remember that, like, I mean, there was at least enough girls for, like, everybody that was there. There was one man that was passed out in a room, so I think, my madam didn't have to service anybody that night, and they kinda just, like, had, like, their pick of the crowd between, like, the girls and everything, and he attached himself to me in a way, and he was very nice and everything like that, very gentlemanlike at first, and we talked about, like, what he did for a job, what his name was, where he
He
worked, and all.
told you his name.
Yeah, he actually did tell me his name. He told me that he was a personal injury lawyer out of, Hampton, South Carolina, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really familiar." I was like, "I live in Beaufort," and he's like, "Oh, you live in Beaufort?" And he's like, "Oh, I like you more already." And, like, we kinda connected on that. We talked about different places to eat in Beaufort, like Alvin Ord's, Plums, Paninis, stuff like that.
So he's treating you with respect. He's
Yeah,
engaging you in a
in a good conversation. So I mean, like I felt safe at that point. I didn't feel like it was really that bad of a situation. I was in a lot worse situations before, and I was unfamiliar with people going to like hotel rooms with random people that just came off a back page and stuff where I was extremely uncomfortable because I had no idea who they were. So I guess you can say having like a more like one-on-one intimate conversation with somebody and actually getting to know them more than just a fake name kind of put me at ease a lot more, and spending time with them, talking about different alcohols and stuff like that, and drinking and just different stuff to do around the area. It wasn't that bad at the point, like at that moment.
sure.
And when it came time to actually have to service them, like I my expectations were still pretty high. I was like, okay, shouldn't be that bad. I've already done this a good like hundreds of dozens times at this point. I was like, this shouldn't be that bad. I mean, he seemed like a really nice person, but I was violently choked with both hands, like being pinned down to the bed in a way by my throat. And it was to the point where I couldn't breathe
By him,
by him.
by Alec
Yes.
Murdaugh
Yes.
at this beach house.
Yeah. And I was pinned down to the bed by my throat with both hands to the point where it was like almost like I was blacking out. I was seeing spots. I was seeing stars. I was beating and scratching on his wrist as much as possible to get him to stop because I thought at that moment I was going to die. And it was also while being violently penetrated. And I think it was like as soon as he was done, I couldn't have gotten up and ran out as fast as possible, even completely naked. I just grabbed everything off the floor that was mine and just ran out of the room and went to a bathroom and locked the door to get dressed and just kind of like collect myself and fight back the tears at that point and to really just put myself back in order in a way to go on to the next appointment. And my madam was there the whole time. She was in the living room, but she was drinking with the other guys and really didn't hear or pay attention to what was going on or anything. So by the time I got out of the bathroom, I just went up to her. I was like, "We need to go. I want to go." I was like, I just want to get out of this house." I was like, "I'm ready to go." And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm not really ready to go yet. We still got to wait on the other girls." I was like, "Can I at least have the keys to go sit in the car with?"
He's the bodyguard.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, well, he's downstairs smoking, so I mean, you can go down there with him." And I went out there with him and explained what happened. And he let me go sit in the car and he went up to go talk to my madam about what transpired and why I wanted to get out of the house so fast. And he came back down and just kind of like said she didn't care. She dismissed it. And I was like, how can you dismiss it for that one person? But if anybody else did that to me, you would be at their throat.
Mhm.
And he's like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. He's like, I'm sorry that it happened. He's like, that is something that would even upset him and something that he didn't approve of and didn't want to happen to us at all. And it he was even just kind of like overstepped by her of like, nope, you're not going to ruin my fun because I'm having fun right now. I don't care what happened to them.
We showed you some pictures yesterday of some other men who
Yeah.
were at that party. We won't get into those men now, but they're folks who are also part of this still unfolding criminal investigation, uh, multiple investigations, as a matter of fact. But these are powerful men. Did you get the sense that after this happened, especially the way that your madam and the guy who was supposed to be protecting you, the way that they reacted, did you get the feeling that these guys were above the law? Or
Yeah. I mean, she always fear-mongered us of how far her reach was, I guess you can say, of who she would service, who other girls have serviced, who she knows, why she's been able to get away with this for upwards of, I think it was like 25 years when I met her.
Wow.
And that if we did or said anything, we would basically fall off the face of the earth and nobody would have a clue or trace as to why. And I mean, we ended up servicing mayors, judges, solicitors, district attorneys from other states,
Police
cops,
officers.
police officers.
Tell us a little bit about that, because this is where it gets very interesting. Some of those appointments with police officers were not so much, it was more for information for your madam. Is that correct?
Yeah, she had somebody on the inside with SLED and basically every police department in the areas that she would service as well. That would give her information on stings and where they were located, what numbers they would be calling from, what names that they were even using as fake names when they would call in. And when we would go to the appointments where we would service the police officers, they would never give us money. She's like, "Oh no, these are ones that are part of our list to help us." And I was just kind of like, "Okay," didn't think much of it.
And these are police at which level?
City, state, SLED, all of them.
And you were essentially having sex with them in exchange for them providing her with
Information and protection in a way, I guess I could say.
Wow.
It was more so like instead of getting our set price of donations, we wouldn't get anything. And she's just like, "You don't have to ask for donations here. You just go in and do this." Or she would even do it herself. And then if we did it,
She would do it herself.
yeah, even sometimes she would do it herself as well. And when we would get back into the car, um, since we didn't receive donations from them, she would pay us out of her own money our normal cut of what we would got from our donations anyways, which was about like $160 to $180.
For how long? What is that?
1 hour, aka one nut.
One orgasm.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it safe to assume most men don't make it the full hour?
No. No.
We won't do an average time here, but take us now through. Okay, so you've been through this harrowing experience at this beach house, and it was probably even worse for you because you felt kind of in a position with somebody. Okay, he's from a town that you're familiar with. He seems nice, but then all of a sudden, was it like a switch flipped, or
Yeah. I mean, it you could just see like his whole entire personality just change almost in a way. It was, I guess you can say, like, in a sense, like, he went into, like, a completely different personality. And you could just see it in his eyes, like, I don't know if it was between, like, the cocaine and everything, but just, like, even, like, his pupils just got so much bigger to the point where, like, his eyes were just, like, almost solid black in a way.
did he have drugs on him at the party? Was he
Yeah, they had drugs when we showed up. There was cocaine and pills going around, but they were running low, and so my madam had, I think it was like 2 more 8 balls of cocaine with her that she sold to them along with, a bag of Percocet, and they asked like, "Oh, well, what else do you have?" And she had, like, her own bag stash of, Xanax bars, and they bought a decent amount of those as well, not a whole lot, but I would say,
did
like,
Alec Murdaugh buy any of these himself?
yeah, they were all kind of, like, compiling money together and everything because it was, like, to be shared amongst, like, all of them.
Huh. Take us to North Charleston a few weeks later.
Um, well, that was the 2nd time that I met him. I believe it was at an extended stay hotel from my vague memory of in and outness of just trying to, I guess you can say, remember this all, but also like little area cues that kept me like
You remembered the
behind things
sign,
like
didn't you?
yeah, the sign outside. It was like a tannish sign with white lettering and a green flower. And I I didn't know who I would have been servicing that much at the time. She didn't I don't think she said a name until like we got there. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. He's going to hurt me again. You don't allow these men to be doing this. Why are you keep sending me back to him?
She used his real name.
Yeah, because we already knew who his name was or who he was and what his name was because he told us like the first time we met
And you
him.
remembered him from the party.
Yeah. And she was like, "Well, I'm sorry, but he requested you. He wants you personally." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Well, can we please just skip him stuff? I don't feel safe doing this. I don't want to die." And she's like, "You're not gonna die, sweetie. I know you gotta get back in this car. You have other appointments. I'm gonna make sure you don't die." But still, she dropped me off and drove off to drop off other girls without a care in the world. So I was essentially alone. And that time when I went up to service him, that's when he ripped chunks of hair out of my head instead of choking me. And I had bald spots in the back of my head, which it was like right at the crown of my head, and even the hair there is still taking a while to grow out, and it's nowhere near as long as the rest of my hair.
From when he pulled hair from your
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, and it was like right from the back of my head, like almost like right at the crown. And it wasn't really easy to hide or cover up whatsoever, especially having to have my hair down all the time. And
So there was
just
no nice Alec this time.
no,
It was just straight into
just violent penetration and ripping hair out of my head.
Tell us about afterward. What'd you do after this second time?
I knew I mean, I couldn't run out into the hallway naked or anything like that, so I just hurry up, got dressed as fast as I could, and I didn't want to sit in the lobby and wait for my madam to come and pick me back up, so I ran down the hallway and I went to the stairs. And I ran down the flights of stairs and I hid in behind the stairs in the stairwell until she pulled up to the front to pick me up. And that's when I left and got in the car.
A few days later, you get another call.
Yeah.
And you said at this point your head's still hurting from everything that happened.
Yeah.
The last time you still got chunks of your hair missing.
Yeah. Still had handprints around my neck too that I was covering up with makeup.
But you were sent back.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened this next time. You're doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
So my Adam made the mistake of telling me where we were going and who I was servicing before we like even left her house. So I was able to kind of like sneak away in a way and like hide my phone as much as possible and ordered an Uber to meet me where we were going because I knew that I didn't want to service him anymore. I didn't want to be put through that hell again. And so I ordered an Uber to meet me at the hotel when we got there. And I, of course, went into the hotel, kind of just like the lobby at that point, and waited for my madam to leave. She drove off and left after she dropped me off. And the Uber pulled up. I got into the Uber and I was like, I had the Uber take me back to my madam's house where my car was. And I was like, I'll give you $300 if you speed like you have never sped before.
So you're bailing on the appointment. You're not.
Yeah, I didn't even wanna go up there. I didn't wanna do anything. I was just like, I just need to run. I need to get out of here. I did not want to have to do that again. I didn't wanna be put in that situation. It's not like I wanted to escape my madam for good. I think that's what she was thinking in a way. I just didn't want to be put in that situation
You didn't want
with
to be
him.
in a room alone with Alec Murdaugh again, did you?
No, because I had no idea what would have happened. And I'm kinda happy and upset that I did run away. Um, we got all the way from that hotel back to Sangre, and my madam was maybe, like, a couple minutes behind us. I guess she was watching my phone, or Alec called her and was like, "Yeah, she's not up here. I don't know where she is." And she realized I bailed, and she, I guess, was following the direction of where my phone was going and realized that I was going back to her house and to her car. So when we got there, I already had all my stuff ready, unbuckled, like ready to just basically tuck and roll out of this Uber and run. And I get up to my car and I'm opening the door and I see headlights pulling up, like turning into the street at really high speed. And that's when I got in my car, started it, and I was backing out of the driveway. And I knew if I went towards the direction that she was coming, she would have just cut me off in the street. So I went the same direction she was going and backed up in to her in a way and hightailed it out. And we were basically in a high speed chase throughout Sangre. And I didn't know that neighborhood well. So I'm kind of thankful that my GPS in my car already had my address programmed for home for Buford, so I just literally just had to hit 2 buttons, and it showed me the route of how to get out Sangre, and I went around that route throughout the neighborhood and kinda, like, almost, like, did a circle through it and ended up back on, the street that she lived on and that she came in on, went out to the end of it, got on North Main Street in Somerville, was speeding down that way, got on the 26 and was going at least 100 miles an hour down 26 heading towards 17 to get back to Buford as
And they're
fast as
still behind
possible.
you at this point.
Yeah, they were still behind me, like, almost rear-ending me at that point. Like, if I hit my brakes at any time, she would have just rear-ended the shit out of me.
So high speed chase through a neighborhood, high speed chase on the interstate. What a
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. I think it was, like, around the time that I think maybe we hit, like, North Charleston area, like, by the airport, I wanna say, that she just completely turned off. And, like, kinda bailed in a way, in a sense, like, "Oh, I got other girls to pick up, I got other jobs to do, fuck her, just let her be, let her go." So, I literally I didn't stop speeding, I didn't wanna stop speeding, I literally sped the whole way back to Buford. I made that hour-and-a-half drive in 45 minutes.
Wow.
I was going about anywhere from 95 to 110 miles an hour down the road as fast as I could. I got back into Beaufort. I hid my car in, like, the tree line behind my house that I lived at and off of, Joe Frazier Road, and I went and I hid in my house in my master closet behind a false wall with my hot water heater for about 2.5 hours, and that was the time that my madam and the bodyguard showed up and ripped my window unit out of my master bedroom window and crawled through and literally flipped my house upside down trying to find me. And they ended up finding me and dragging me out of my house.
The same night.
Yeah. They dragged me out of my house and put me in the car. And I was forced to go back and service Murdaugh. And he was even more pissed
I was about to
and
say, how
violent than
long after
before.
how late were you at this point? Or
At least a good like 4 or 5 hours late.
so he's pissed.
Yeah. And I got hair pulling and choking. And if he wasn't choking me, I had a wash rag shoved in my mouth and was being slapped across my face violently for a good like 20, 30 minutes. And whatever money I got from him, I had to turn it all over. I never got a cut from that. And literally the rest of the night, everybody I serviced, I never got a single cut from them. I had to turn all my money over, and I was forced to basically stay in the car and be serviced by her, or not really be serviced by her, but be of service to her and go to all these appointments till whenever she was tired and ready to go home. And then she ordered me an Uber to take me back to Beaufort because I didn't have my car. I was too much of a flight risk to drive.
So she took it out on you for fleeing
Yeah.
after he took it out on you for fleeing.
Yeah.
There was one more time with him, wasn't there?
Yeah. I want to say it was maybe a few days later, maybe a week at most. And that time, she stayed in the parking lot the whole time, regardless of other girls had appointments, how long it was going to take, whatever it may be. She did not care what he did to me the 3 previous times. She was like, "You're just going to suck it up and deal with it. That's what he's paying for." I was like, "Yeah, but every other person that we've serviced pays the exact same price. And if they did anything like what he was doing, you would literally have the bodyguard in there with a gun to their head and having them choke the heck out." Why does he get this exception? She's like, "He's in my phone, that's why."
That's what she said. In her phone.
Yeah, in her phone, not like the little trap flip phones that they would use. It was her personal phone, which was like, in a way, it was like almost like Epstein's Black Book. She had clients that were personal friends of hers or that she serviced or has paid extra money or has done favors for her, whatever, that she keeps in her personal phone that basically got special privilege.
And one of the special privileges is choking you out and pulling your hair out and
for what?
shoving
Yeah, rags in her mouth. Yeah, it was literally like the special privileges. It was for something that I guess she needed a payment for, or whatever, I guess, of a favor that he did for her in the past. I'm not entirely sure. Still don't know. I have no idea. But I guess have just been like either longtime customers or people that she trusts and knows that are, I guess you can say, high up in like a legal sense, to where if something happened, she could go to them for free services because of basically all the blackmail and dirt that she has on them.
I do have to ask you this, and frankly, after listening to your story and the details, and after talking to you yesterday about everything, I don't know how anybody could listen and not be completely convinced. But you said it earlier, we're in an environment where people have come at you and said, "Oh, you're making this up. You saw his name, you saw him on the cover of People magazine. You're just trying to get attention. You're trying to get money."
No.
What do you say when you hear those kind of things, and how do you push back against those kind of comments, Lindsey?
Honestly, I mean, they weren't there, so I mean, it's degrading to me to invalidate the trauma that I went through. And to think that I would want to lie about this, to think that I want money from this, I don't want money. I could care less about money. It's I wanted my story to come out, and I wanted to be I wanted to have the attention it could be, so it would get the attention to the abortion bans and stuff that are going on in Roe versus Wade, and that this taking that sort of healthcare and ability away from women in this state that are most likely even still going through what I have been going through or have gone through is just going to put women in such more great harm. There won't be an escape or help or anything like that for even people who have been in my situation or have been going through domestic violence or whatever it may be, or even just violently raped. They're they'll have to literally be stuck with somebody else's, I wouldn't even say poor choices, but somebody else's aggression and illegal actions for the rest of their life and have to be reminded of that. And what I've been through, I'm still reminded of it daily. And I think about it a lot. And it is traumatizing and it bothers me. And I don't want it to hold me back. I don't want it to let me hold me back. I was like, if anything, I want to use what I've been through to help other people. And if I do get money from this, then I don't care. I'd rather open a foundation to help human trafficking victims in this state because it's a lot bigger issue than I think anybody thinks.
That was one of the most impressive things in our conversation that we had before we came on. You had talked about maybe talking to some attorneys because I think, as you had mentioned, there are dates and locations and obviously cell phone numbers and cell phone
Yeah.
signals related to this that will paint a narrative that will show, okay, if people say you're lying, let's look at these numbers. But when you had talked about the lawyers, you'd said that about how I don't want anything from him.
Mhm.
What I want, tell us what you want.
I I want justice for not just myself, but for everybody else that's been going through this. I would like to open up a foundation for human trafficking victims to they can start their lives over and not have to fight tooth and nail like what I had to get to where I'm at today. And to make it to where if these victims of human trafficking, if they're owned by a pimp or a madam, whatever it may be, if they can provide enough information to lead to their prosecution that these victims should not be treated like as criminals and be charged for solicitation, prostitution, whatever it may be. They need to be treated as victims and victims as such because once you get those type of charges on you, you can't get jobs, you can't get any sort of government benefits to help you, even if like you end up out of that situation and the pimp or madam is locked up. You won't have anything to fall back on to help you to be able to get back on your feet. And then next thing you know, they're going to be resorting to trading sex for money again because that's all they know and that's all they've been doing. And it needs to be a cycle breaker. There needs to be an end to this and to help other people rather than just criminalizing them and punishing them for the rest of their life. Like give them a second chance at life because people like me didn't have a choice. And I know there's hundreds of other girls that didn't have a choice either.
What about Alec Murdaugh? What do you want for him?
I hope, honestly, he rots in jail. Death penalty would be nice, but I feel like that's an easy way out. He can spend the rest of his life in jail and die in jail. He shouldn't get the same liberties or freedoms or anything like that as anybody else for the rest of his life. And it's definitely proven that the violence in him has always been there. He just resonated it in different ways leading up until this.
Let me ask you this question. The story, this incredible narrative of everything you've been through, obviously it's much bigger than Alec Murdaugh. He's sort of the flame that the moth saw
Mhm.
come to, as far as, but you could have told this story to anyone. You could have sold this story. You could have. Why don't you come to us?
I mean, I would like to say I'm a South Carolina native at this point. I have followed y'all for years. I'm friends with Mandy Matney on Facebook, and I've seen the way that y'all handle your stories. You don't let them just like sit there and be like, okay, done is done. Let's just move on to the next thing. You've constantly revisited the same things over and over and over and over again, and keep on pressing for information and keep on pressing for justice and a better answer. Whereas other people would probably just use this as like a front page cover news just to make sales and then walk away from it. And I wouldn't see any sort of justice, legal help, or anything like that.
And you've already, speaking of sort of that bigger picture, next century, you've already had some conversations with some political leaders, have reached out to you
Yes.
even before this aired.
Yes. Senator Shealy, she's been texting me, calling me, emailing me. We're on a very good talking basis and everything like that. And along with everybody that works in her office. And they're kind of like pressing for me to write a book now about everything. And to make sure if I get it published and everything like that, to make sure I sign a copy and mail it to them for sure, because even they're blown away by this. And obviously they're even upset too about how even like I wouldn't say legal aspects, but the officers that were involved and everything like that could have helped and did nothing, upset them horribly. And hoping that literally SLED, city, and state police all get overturned and find the connections that were there between my madam and everyone there.
Do you feel like the people that you've spoken to, do you feel like they see the bigger picture? Do you feel like they see that this is just bigger than part of the Murdaugh
Yeah.
saga?
Yes, 100%. I mean, it Alex Murdaugh's like 1 in a million out of everybody that I've had to go through in service and stuff. I mean, there's tons between just in the state of South Carolina and then traveling to the master store
Mhm.
and servicing people at the PGA Masters. Very big name people. A lot of big name CEOs and companies and stuff like that. And it's a lot more than just Alec.
Mhm. And like you told me before, if it's a choice that you're making,
Mhm.
if it's a choice that you're comfortable with and a situation you're comfortable with, that's not really, your issue, though, is when you get forced into these positions where you're being violently attacked
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
with no choice.
there was definitely, I mean, some times where it's like I had customers that were her regulars that were actually very nice people and very attractive people that even though I was in like the worst job line ever and hated doing that job and I did not want to do it at all, there was a few people that made me feel like, dang, I should be paying you to sleep with me. Why are you paying me right now? Oh my gosh.
Some good looking, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my lord. Like there was one, it was a veterinarian out of Mount Pleasant who was just drop dead gorgeous. And he would also like ask like what kind of pets we had and stuff, and would send us with like flea and tick medication, heartworm pills and stuff for free. It was so I mean like there wasn't always very bad situations. Granted, there was a lot of times where like it was 99% of the time just strangers, just the first time meeting them from back page ads and stuff like that. There was a handful of the ones that were super abusive, like Alec, or would just take advantage of us to the fact of, like, I mean, even just removing the condom and trying to have sex with us and then thinking that was okay. There there's a group of those people. Then it's like there's also a group of, like, the men where it's like they were very nice, very respectable, and didn't want me to get in trouble just as much as they didn't wanna get in trouble. Didn't want to feel like they were, I guess you can say, violating me in a way. One to, like, kinda, like, make sure that, like, I was okay with everything, was always asking permission for everything, like, "Can I kiss you here? Can I kiss you there?" Like, just very respectable in a way.
Mhm.
And I guess those were the nights where it was like, alright, it kinda set the tone and the mood for the night where it actually, like, kinda put me in a better mood and I wasn't depressed the whole time and thinking about how I was going to kill myself.
Lindsay, your story is one that, unlike any other I think we've ever covered, and I think there are going to be a lot of people that are going to want to hear your story. Lawyers, media,
Yeah.
law enforcement, politicians. But
Yeah.
I just can't thank you enough for being willing to share it with us first. And I know just from speaking to you yesterday how difficult it was even to go through the preview for the setup for this interview and then to have to come in and do it again. I know you've had to relive a lot of this. And so I just want to say thank you for being willing to go through that again, to share this with other people as part of these broader objectives that you're pushing for. I think it says a whole lot about you, and just incredibly grateful for you being willing to do this.
You're welcome. I'm internally grateful that y'all even want to do this or even taking me seriously because just the amount of criticism that I've received between TikTok and I guess Reddit. I don't even have Reddit, but from what other people have told me, it put such a terrible doubt in my head that, like, I guess I'll never get any sort of justice for what I've been through.
Mhm.
And it's just always going to be like an ongoing thing and something that's always going to be here and be alive and pumping well and making money for these horrible people. And it's like I still even hyper vigilant to this day, like just even sitting outside of the hotel smoking, I'm watching girls coming in and out and how they're dressed and who's picking them up and where they're going and stuff like that. And it's almost triggering. And it's like there were so many signs for so many years as to what we were doing, and nobody noticed. And I don't even think it was that like nobody noticed. It was also like nobody cared. Nobody gave a fuck, right? Like if we were doing this or not. And I feel like if more people learn the signs of human trafficking and situations we were in and stuff, that there would be more reporting and there would be more help and hopefully more lives saved at this point. Because, I mean, there was even nights where we would just go to the bar and be dressed up nice, like almost like generally like what I'm wearing right now, and just be drinking and just be talking to older men at the bars and stuff like that. And it's like, what 20-year-old girl wants to be at a bar talking to like a 65-year-old man? That right there should have been like a trigger for not just the bartenders, but anybody else attending in that bar. Like, why is this young girl talking to this old man? It didn't make sense. I mean, that's another thing I would like to do is just to be able to share my experiences and hopefully make other people hyper vigilant with all the signs that are there when it comes to human trafficking that a lot of people look over, that law enforcement themselves aren't even trained to identify.
Mhm. Well, I know
Mm.
you're out of state now, but I do want to say that we hope you'll come back. We want to keep following up. Like you said, this is just the beginning of the story. It's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
Um, but can't thank you enough. Lindsey Edwards, everybody, thank you, Lindsey,
Thank
for
you.
coming in and doing this. Appreciate you more than you know.
Thank you.
breaking news on WFLA Now. Here is JB Buno.
The evidence used to find, track, and arrest the suspect in the Idaho student murders is released, including details of a surviving roommate in the house encountering a masked figure at the crime scene, and new details on the DNA evidence used to establish probable cause. We're live breaking it down. The newly released affidavit here on WFLA Now. Hello there, folks. JB here with you live across all platforms. Hello to our Facebook Live, YouTube Live audience, where you can use hashtag.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today.
We're going to be featuring a lot of your comments over the course of this live stream. We're also going to be featuring hashtag Hey Robert. Joining us live from Moscow, Idaho, Robert Sherman of News Nation. Robert, great to finally have you on stream and great to work with you here side by side as we go through this probable cause affidavit. This was the document that everybody was looking forward to being released today. We get it, of course, pretty early on in the day, Pacific time, of course, where you're joining us from. We're going to go through it page by page, you and I. But you've had the opportunity to really comb through this document. News Nation, one of the first to get this